Is Piers Morgan in any real trouble following his comments regarding Harry and Meghan? In my view, no. I mean, what he said might be quite harsh, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think he will. So welcome back. We're on Black Belt Secrets. I will link that video of Piers Morgan in the description below. I'm here in the evening with my mocha because, well, I have to keep working and it's evening, so why not mocha? So why do I think he's not going to be in any trouble? Well, judging by the previous Ofcom decisions, particularly the one where Piers Morgan was talking about Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey and the 50,000 complaints that were made in respect of that. Some people, in response to my previous Black Belt Barrister video, said it might well be bots filing those complaints. And that might well be true. I don't know. I don't suppose it'll be too difficult to get bots set up to file those complaints, but there might well be genuinely 50,000 people, more than 50,000 people that made a complaint in respect of those comments, in respect of that interview. How about this one? Well, there's 95, according to the Ofcom website, 95 complaints that have been made in respect of these comments from last week. But that is not unusual. As I mentioned over on my Black Belt Barrister video, there are lots of other programs and shows and comments and people about whom these complaints are made, and hundreds of them sometimes. I mean, one program in 1 week in December had over 700 complaints, another had over 1,000 complaints. What does this tell us? Well, now a lot of people will say that British people don't really complain very much. On the contrary, I think British people complain quite a lot. To say that British people don't complain, I don't agree. I come across a lot of people that complain, and not just because I'm a barrister and work in law and obviously deal with complaints of people, against each other, only very rarely against me, but complain people do. Now, these programs have had hundreds and hundreds of complaints week in, week out. It's the norm. I think to work at a place like Ofcom, where you're receiving these complaints, must get a little bit tedious after a while. And various other places like NHS and the transport services, you see these signs everywhere saying, don't hurt our staff and things like this. And I think that's a really sad state of affairs, but here we are. But coming back to the point, why do I think Piers Morgan is not in any trouble? In my view, just my view, obviously. Now, I accept that some people love Piers Morgan and some people don't. And some people will find those comments offensive, probably, and some people will not like those comments. But all of that is balanced between the right to the freedom of expression, which is Article 10 rights, ECHR, as against the potential harm, because it's a qualified right. What do we mean by that? Well, we have certain rights. We have absolute rights, which are those that cannot be taken away under any circumstances. They cannot be curtailed, they cannot be interfered with. But then there are other rights which are qualified rights. Now, there are a number of qualified rights, of which freedom of expression is one, meaning you are free to say what you wish and express yourself in a manner that you wish, but that can be curtailed and restricted given the potential harm and offence that it causes other people. There are specific offences that arise from this, public order offences, usually where you are either deliberately insulting somebody or deliberately causing alarm or distress, or where you say something that is abusive and so on, which then goes on to cause alarm and distress. But besides those, if you are just making comments in the general round of things and you are commenting on public issues, you are debating public issues, you are very forcefully putting your opinions across, and it is known that you are putting your opinions across, then that is a different matter. As against being out in the street and shaking your fists at somebody. Like pretty much the guy this morning, by him doing the gesture to me, he walked forward to me with his arms out. Many people might have feared immediate harm from his reaction to me. Now, just as a side note, anyone who's worried about dogs and things like that, a dog barking as somebody runs past is not a dog dangerously out of control. A dog dangerously out of control is someone who's repeatedly barking at somebody, jumping up, being aggressive, and genuinely would put somebody of reasonable firmness into fear that they are about to be harmed. But as you can probably gather, the floof is not a dog that would do such a thing. But coming back to Piers Morgan and many other people, there are a great deal of people that give their comments and their opinions online, some of which might be distasteful, some of which you might not agree with, or many people might not agree with, but it will very likely, most of the time, be within the realm of the freedom of expression, unless there is direct incitement to hatred, direct incitement to cause harm, direct incitement to a great deal of other things that we would call hate speech, and that can border on terrorism offences and all sorts of other things. But these comments, whilst they might be objectionable for certain people, I personally, this is just my personal opinion, I don't think there's any real risk there based on the previous findings of Ofcom and the way that they deal with such complaints. I've seen various complaints, both by Piers Morgan and in the past, of various categories that would probably be far worse than these comments just recently. So overall, I don't think there is a problem with it. And for what it's worth, it's quite likely that Piers has legal counsel of many more years' experience than me, and they discussed it beforehand. And they said, well, it might be a bit risky, but you're probably okay. Or maybe they even said, yeah, that's fine. I don't see a problem with that. I personally don't see that it's going to cause any major issues. There may well be a flood of complaints. There are lots of things, as you've seen in the numbers that I referenced in my Black Belt Barrister video, there are lots of different instances that create floods of complaints. But that doesn't necessarily translate into even an actionable investigation. And even if it does end up in an investigation, as in the previous one against Piers Morgan's complaints regarding the Oprah Winfrey interview, there was no breach of the broadcasting code. So personally, I don't think that there's going to be an issue there. But let me know what you think in the comments. You might disagree. That's absolutely fine. I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong. Just from what I read, the way I read into things, that I don't think there is going to be any serious issue. So let me know what you think. Whether you like him or not, try to think of this objectively and think balancing the right to the freedom of expression as against any potential real harm against individuals who heard those comments and things like that. If you've no idea what I'm talking about, I think you need to go and watch it. And if it's still live, I will link it in the description below. But let me know what you think, and please do subscribe here. We're on Black Belt Secrets, my raw thoughts as they come out with my mocha this evening. And now I'm going to go and sit down, finish off some work, and then try and have a bit of an evening. So the Floof and I bid you farewell.